In a small, sleepy town surrounded by lush green hills and winding rivers, life moved at a gentle pace. The air was always filled with the scent of blooming wildflowers in spring and the crisp chill of autumn leaves crunching underfoot during fall. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, where front doors were left unlocked, and neighbors shared warm meals over long conversations about the weather or local gossip. But beneath this peaceful exterior lay stories waiting to unfold, some joyful, some heartbreaking, and others so extraordinary that they would leave an indelible mark on the town for generations. At the heart of this community lived Thomas Carter, known simply as Tom to those who loved him. Tom was a man of simple pleasures and quiet strength. He worked tirelessly on his family farm, which had been passed down through 4 generations before reaching his hands. Every morning, he woke, up with the sun, donned his worn-out boots and headed out to tend to the fields. His face bore the marks of years spent outdoors. The deep lines around his eyes told tales of laughter, while the creases on his forehead spoke of worries faced and overcome. Despite the hardships life threw his way, Tom remained a pillar of hope for everyone around him. Neighbors often sought his advice when times got tough, knowing full well that his words carried wisdom earned through experience. Tom wasn't alone in carrying the weight of the world. He had 2 sons, Ethan and Liam, who were identical twins. From the moment they were born, the boys had been inseparable. They looked alike, dressed alike, and even finished each other's sentences without missing a beat. Growing up, they shared everything, from toys and clothes to dreams and fears. People in town often joked that if you blinked, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Yet, despite their striking resemblance, Ethan and Liam had distinct personalities. Ethan was the more outgoing of the 2, always cracking jokes and lighting up any room he entered. Liam, on the other hand, was quieter but incredibly thoughtful. He had a knack for noticing details others overlooked and could make anyone feel seen and heard with just a few kind words. The bond between the 3 Carters was unshakable. On weekends, they could often be found fishing by the riverbank, their laughter echoing across the water. Sometimes Tom would share stories from his childhood, how his own father had taught him to fish right there, using nothing more than a makeshift rod and patience. Those moments weren't just about catching fish. They were about passing down traditions, creating memories, and strengthening ties that no force on earth could sever. To anyone watching, it was clear that Tom adored his sons more than anything else in the world, and Ethan and Liam idolized their father in return. But life has a way of reminding us how fragile it truly is. One chilly November morning, something unusual happened. Tom woke up feeling unusually tired, as though the energy had drained out of him overnight. At first, he dismissed it as exhaustion from working late into the evening the previous day. Still, there was a heaviness in his chest that he couldn't quite shake off. Determined not to let it interfere with his routine, he pushed himself to get out of bed and start his day. Meanwhile, Ethan and Liam decided to take a trip into the city to pick up supplies for their upcoming fishing adventure, a tradition they cherished deeply. As they drove away, waving goodbye to their dad, none of them realized it would be the last time they saw one another. The journey to the city should have been straightforward, but fate had other plans. Heavy rain had drenched the roads overnight, leaving them slick and treacherous. About halfway through their drive, Ethan, who was behind the wheel, lost control of the car on a sharp curve. The vehicle skidded off the road and crashed into a tree. Emergency services arrived quickly, but it was already too late. Both brothers were pronounced dead at the scene, their lives cut tragically short in an instant. Back home, unaware of what had transpired, Tom sat quietly in his living room, staring out the window. The heaviness in his chest grew unbearable, and within minutes, he collapsed. A neighbor discovered him later that evening and called for help, but like his sons, Tom didn't survive. The news sent shockwaves through the town, leaving everyone reeling from the unimaginable loss of 3 beloved souls, all on the same day. As word spread about the tragic accident and Tom's sudden passing, disbelief turned into sorrow. Friends, family, and even strangers gathered to offer support to the devastated Carter household. Preparations for the funeral began almost immediately. with the entire town pitching in to ensure every detail was perfect. Flowers arrived by the dozens, filling the house with their sweet fragrance. Cakes and casseroles lined the kitchen counters, prepared by neighbors eager to ease the burden on the grieving relatives. Yet, amidst the flurry of activity, whispers of confusion lingered in the air. How could such a thing happen? Why did all three pass away on the same day? Some called it a cruel twist of fate, while others whispered of divine intervention or cosmic alignment. No one dared suggest it might be anything else, at least, not yet. By the time the day of the funeral arrived, the atmosphere was heavy with emotion. Mourners filed into the cemetery under a gray, overcast sky, their footsteps muffled by damp grass. The graveside service began solemnly, with tears streaming down faces as the pastor spoke heartfelt words about Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Then came a moment that no one expected. A stranger stepped forward. She introduced herself as Sarah, a distant cousin of Tom's whom no one recognized. With trembling hands and a voice thick with emotion, she began to speak. What she revealed next would change the way everyone viewed the tragedy forever. Sarah recounted a story Tom had once confided in her decades ago. In vivid detail, she described a recurring dream he'd had, a dream where he stood beside his twin sons under a stormy sky, surrounded by loved ones saying goodbye. He had described the strange sense of peace he felt in the dream, despite the sadness enveloping them. If this vision ever comes true, Tom had told her back then, it will mean we aren't truly gone. We've simply moved on, to somewhere better. The revelation left the crowd stunned. Was it possible that Tom had foreseen his own death and the deaths of his sons all those years ago? The eerie accuracy of his dream added a layer of mystery to the already heart-wrenching event, sparking endless conversations among the townspeople. In the days following the funeral, the story of Tom's prophetic dream spread like wildfire. People began sharing their own experiences of uncanny premonitions or signs from departed loved ones. Some claimed to see fleeting glimpses of Tom walking near the old oak tree where he used to sit with Ethan and Liam. Others swore they heard faint laughter echoing through the fields late at night, the kind of carefree giggles only twins could produce. These accounts wove a tapestry of wonder around the tragedy, transforming raw pain into something almost poetic. Though the ache of absence remained, the town started healing in ways no one anticipated. Months passed, and though the sharp edges of grief softened, the memory of Tom, Ethan, and Liam continued to live on in unexpected ways. Inspired by their final act of unity, even in death, the community rallied to create a memorial garden dedicated to the Carters. At its center stood a statue of three figures holding hands beneath a swirling cloud formation, symbolizing the bond that transcended mortality. Visitors often left notes pinned to the base, expressing gratitude for the reminder that love endures beyond physical presence. And every year on the anniversary of their passing, residents gathered to celebrate the lives of Tom, Ethan, and Liam, not with mourning, but with joyous remembrance. What started as a tale of unimaginable loss evolved into a testament of resilience and interconnectedness. The Carters' story taught everyone that even in the darkest moments there is light to be found, in shared memories, unexpected revelations, and the enduring power of love. For those who lived through it, the events served as a poignant reminder that life is fragile yet beautiful, unpredictable yet meaningful. Though the questions surrounding that fateful day may never be fully answered, the legacy of Tom and his twin sons continues to inspire, proving that sometimes endings are merely beginnings in disguise. The tragedy that struck the Carter family sent shockwaves through the small town, leaving its residents grappling with a mix of disbelief, sorrow, and unanswered questions. The news of Tom's passing alongside his twin sons, Ethan and Liam, spread like wildfire, each retelling adding another layer of heartbreak to an already unbearable story. Neighbors who had known the Carters for years found themselves struggling to comprehend how such a close-knit family could be torn apart so suddenly. The idea of losing one member was devastating enough, but all three on the same day. It felt surreal, as though reality itself had fractured. As word reached every corner of the community, people began gathering outside the Carter home, bringing casseroles, fresh-baked pies, and flower arrangements in an attempt to offer comfort. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now stood eerily quiet, save for the occasional sound of muffled sobs from inside. Friends and relatives took turns sitting with what remained of the Carter family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all trying their best to piece together some semblance of normalcy amid the chaos. Yet no amount of food or kind words could fill the void left behind by Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Their absence loomed large, casting a shadow over everything. Preparations for the funeral moved quickly, driven by the collective effort of the townsfolk. Everyone pitched in. Some helped arrange bouquets, others polished old photo frames for display, while a few volunteered to clean the church where the service would take place. Despite the flurry of activity, there was an undercurrent of unease. Conversations buzzed not just about logistics, but also about the bizarre circumstances surrounding the triple loss. People whispered among themselves, speculating endlessly. Was it mere coincidence that Tom passed away almost simultaneously with his sons, or was there something deeper at play? Among these discussions emerged theories ranging from logical explanations to more supernatural interpretations. Some suggested that Tom's death might have been triggered by grief, even if he hadn't known about the car accident. Perhaps his subconscious sensed the impending tragedy. Others pointed to the stormy weather that night, arguing that nature itself seemed to mirror the town's anguish. But then there were those who ventured into murkier territory, speaking of signs, omens, and even destiny. A local woman claimed she'd seen a shooting star streak across the sky the evening before the accident, a rare occurrence in their usually clear, starlit nights, and interpreted it as a message from above. Another neighbor recounted hearing church bells ring spontaneously late at night, though no weddings or services had been scheduled. These anecdotes fueled imaginations, turning whispers into rumors and rumors into legends. Despite the growing intrigue, the focus remained on honoring the lives of Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Photos of happier times were collected to create a slideshow that would play during the memorial service. There were pictures of Tom teaching the boys how to ride bikes, snapshots of family picnics by the river, and candid shots of Ethan and Liam laughing uncontrollably at some private joke only they understood. Each image served as a reminder of the joy they brought to those around them, making the pain of their departure feel even sharper. As friends and relatives pored over these memories, emotions ran high. Tears flowed freely, but so did laughter, especially when someone shared a funny anecdote about one of the twins' mischievous escapades. It was bittersweet yet cathartic, to celebrate the essence of who they were rather than dwell solely on how they left. On the morning of the funeral, the town woke up to a sky heavy with clouds, threatening rain. Mourners, dressed in somber attire, made their way to the cemetery clutching umbrellas and tissues. The air was thick with emotion, punctuated by sniffles and hushed voices exchanging condolences. When everyone had gathered around the gravesites, the pastor began the service with prayers and readings. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke of love, loss, and eternal peace, echoing sentiments that resonated deeply with those present. Flowers adorned the caskets, white lilies for purity, yellow roses for friendship, and blue hydrangeas symbolizing heartfelt gratitude. Every detail was chosen carefully, reflecting the personalities of Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Just as the pastor invited attendees to share personal stories or memories, a figure stepped forward unexpectedly. Dressed simply in dark clothing, she introduced herself as Sarah, a distant cousin of Tom's whom few recognized. Her presence alone was surprising, given her lack of involvement in recent years, but what she said next left the entire crowd speechless. With trembling hands and eyes glistening with unshed tears, Sarah revealed a secret Tom had confided in her decades earlier, a secret so profound that it reframed the entire tragedy in a new light. Sarah recounted how, years ago, Tom had approached her after having a vivid dream. In this dream, he saw himself standing beside his twin sons beneath a turbulent sky. Around them stood loved ones saying goodbye, yet instead of despair, he felt an overwhelming sense of calm. Tom told me then, Sarah explained softly, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves, that if such a vision ever came true, it wouldn't mean they were truly gone. Instead, it would signify that they had simply moved on to somewhere better. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people exchanged glances, some nodding thoughtfully while others dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs. The revelation sent ripples through the gathering. Here was a man who had unknowingly predicted his own fate and that of his sons all those years ago. Could it really be possible? Skeptics dismissed it as coincidence, while believers embraced it as proof of something greater at work. Regardless of individual interpretations, Sarah's account added an undeniable layer of mystique to the already haunting tale. For many, it provided a strange form of solace, the notion that Tom, Ethan, and Liam weren't suffering anymore, but had transitioned together, bound by the same unbreakable bond they shared in life. In the days following the funeral, conversations about Tom's prophetic dream dominated the town. People debated its implications, shared their own experiences of premonitions or signs from departed loved ones, and marveled at the interconnectedness of life and death. Some reported seeing fleeting glimpses of Tom wandering near familiar spots, the old oak tree, the fishing spot by the river, as if he were still watching over them. Others claimed to hear faint laughter drifting through the fields late at night, reminiscent of Ethan and Liam's playful banter. Whether rooted in fact or imagination, these accounts wove a tapestry of wonder around the tragedy, transforming raw grief into something almost poetic. Months passed, and though the sharp edges of loss softened, the legacy of Tom, Ethan, and Liam continued to shape the town in unexpected ways. Inspired by their final act of unity, the community rallied to create a memorial garden dedicated to the Carters. At its center stood a statue of 3 figures holding hands beneath a swirling cloud formation, symbolizing the enduring connection between father and sons. Visitors often left notes pinned to the base, expressing gratitude for the reminder that love transcends physical boundaries. And every year on the anniversary of their passing, residents gathered not to mourn but to celebrate the lives of Tom, Ethan, and Liam, with music, laughter, and heartfelt remembrance. What started as a story of unimaginable heartbreak evolved into a testament of resilience, interconnectedness, and the power of love. The Carters' journey taught everyone that even in the darkest moments there is light to be found, in shared memories, unexpected revelations, and the enduring bonds we forge with those we hold dear. For those who lived through it, the events served as a poignant reminder that life is fragile yet beautiful, unpredictable yet meaningful. Though the questions surrounding that fateful day may never be fully answered, the legacy of Tom and his twin sons continues to inspire, proving that sometimes endings are merely beginnings in disguise. The days following the funeral were a blur of emotions for the townspeople. Grief hung heavy in the air, mingling with the scent of freshly turned earth and wilting flowers left at the gravesites. People went about their routines mechanically, finding it hard to focus on work or chores. Conversations were subdued, punctuated by long pauses as if everyone was collectively holding their breath, waiting for some semblance of normalcy to return. Yet amidst the shared sorrow, something remarkable began to emerge, a sense of unity that transcended individual pain. Sarah's revelation about Tom's prophetic dream had ignited a spark within the community. At first, skepticism prevailed. After all, dreams are often dismissed as random fragments of subconscious thought. But the eerie accuracy of Tom's vision, standing beside his twin sons under a stormy sky, surrounded by loved ones saying goodbye, was too striking to ignore. It wasn't just the content of the dream that captivated people, but also its timing. Decades before the tragedy, Tom had described an event so specific that it mirrored reality almost perfectly. How could such a thing happen? Was it coincidence, or was there a deeper meaning behind it? Questions like these became the topic of countless discussions. Neighbors gathered on porches, sharing stories over cups of coffee laced with sugar and cream. Some recounted their own experiences of premonitions or signs they believed came from beyond. An elderly woman named Margaret spoke of how her late husband once told her he'd dreamed of meeting their dog Max, who had passed away years earlier. Days later, she found a stray puppy wandering near their gate, looking identical to Max. Another man, Joe, recalled waking up one morning convinced he needed to call his brother out of the blue. When he did, he learned his sibling had been thinking of him at the exact same moment, struggling with a decision only Joe could help resolve. These anecdotes may have seemed trivial to outsiders, but to those who heard them, they carried weight. They hinted at connections between life and death, past and present, that defied logic. As more people opened up about their personal encounters with the inexplicable, a subtle shift occurred in the town's collective mindset. The initial shock of losing Tom, Ethan, and Liam gave way to curiosity, to a desire to understand what lay beyond the veil of mortality. For many, Sarah's story provided a framework through which they could process their grief. If Tom's dream truly foretold his passing alongside his son's, then perhaps death wasn't the end. Perhaps it was simply another chapter, another realm, where bonds forged in life continued unbroken. This idea brought comfort, even if it couldn't erase the ache of absence entirely. But it wasn't just words and theories that kept the memory of the Carters alive. It was tangible signs that began appearing around town. A few weeks after the funeral, reports started trickling in about strange occurrences linked to Tom, Ethan, and Liam. One evening, a neighbor claimed to see a figure resembling Tom walking near the old oak tree where he used to sit with the twins. The silhouette was faint, barely visible against the fading light, but unmistakably familiar. Another resident swore she heard faint laughter echoing through the fields late at night, the kind of carefree giggles only Ethan and Liam could produce. Though no one could confirm whether these sightings were real or products of imagination, fueled by longing, they added a layer of mystery to the already haunting tale. These accounts spread quickly, becoming part of the town's lore. Children whispered about the Carters' spirits during recess, while adults debated the validity of such claims over dinner. Some dismissed them as wishful thinking, attributing the phenomena to grief-induced hallucinations. Others embraced them wholeheartedly, seeing them as proof that Tom, Ethan, and Liam remained close in spirit, watching over the town they loved. Regardless of interpretation, these stories created a bridge between the living and the departed, allowing people to feel connected to those they had lost. Inspired by this growing sense of connection, the community decided to channel their energy into something meaningful, a memorial garden dedicated to the Carters. The project began modestly, with volunteers clearing weeds and planting seeds in a neglected patch of land near the cemetery. Over time, however, it evolved into something far grander than anyone anticipated. Donations poured in, from flower, bulbs and saplings to benches and stone pathways. Artists contributed sculptures, painters created murals, and musicians composed songs inspired by the Carters' story. Every element of the garden was infused with love and intention, transforming it into a sanctuary of remembrance and reflection. At the heart of the garden stood a statue crafted by a local sculptor renowned for his lifelike creations. The piece depicted three figures holding hands beneath a swirling cloud formation, symbolizing the unbreakable bond between Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Their faces were serene, eyes gazing upward as though reaching toward something greater. Surrounding the statue were plaques engraved with quotes, poems, and messages from friends and family. One read, "Life is fragile, but love is eternal." Another said, "Even in goodbyes we find new beginnings." Together, these tributes formed a tapestry of gratitude, celebrating not just the lives of the Carters but the values they embodied: kindness, resilience, and unwavering devotion. As the memorial garden took shape, so too did the town's healing process. Visitors came from neighboring counties to pay their respects, leaving notes pinned to the base of the statue. Some expressed condolences, others shared stories of their own losses, and a few simply wrote words of encouragement. Each note added another thread to the intricate web of human connection that the Carters' legacy had woven. On sunny afternoons, families strolled through the garden, children running barefoot across the grass while parents paused to reflect. Even in moments of silence, there was a palpable sense of peace, an acknowledgement that though life is fleeting, its impact endures. Every year on the anniversary of the Carters' passing, the town gathered in the garden for a celebration of life. Instead of mourning, they chose to honor Tom, Ethan, and Liam with joyous remembrance. Music filled the air as local bands played melodies both lively and soulful. Friends and relatives brought dishes to share, turning the event into a potluck feast reminiscent of the gatherings the Carters themselves used to host. Stories flowed freely, laughter echoed through the trees, and tears were shed, but always accompanied by smiles. It was a day to remember not just who the Carters were, but what they represented. The power of love to transcend boundaries, unite communities, and inspire hope. What started as a tragedy had transformed into a testament of resilience and interconnectedness. The Carters' story taught everyone that even in the darkest moments there is light to be found, in shared memories, unexpected revelations, and the enduring bonds we forge with those we hold dear. For those who lived through it, the events served as a poignant reminder that life is fragile yet beautiful, unpredictable yet meaningful. Though the questions surrounding that fateful day may never be fully answered, the legacy of Tom and his twin sons continues to inspire, proving that sometimes endings are merely beginnings in disguise. And so, the small town carried on, forever, changed by the loss of three beloved souls. Yet in their absence they left behind a gift, a renewed appreciation for the ties that bind us, the mysteries that surround us, and the infinite capacity of the human spirit to find beauty in even the most heartbreaking circumstances. As the weeks turned into months, the town slowly began to adjust to life without Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Yet, their absence was felt in every corner, in the empty fields where Tom once worked tirelessly, in the quiet laughter that no longer echoed through the streets, and in the fishing spot by the riverbank where father and sons used to spend countless afternoons. The void they left behind was immense, but so too was the ripple effect of their legacy. In the wake of tragedy, the community had come together in ways no one could have predicted, united not just by grief, but by a shared determination to honor the Carters' memory. The memorial garden became the focal point of this collective effort. What had started as a modest patch of land transformed into a vibrant sanctuary, a place where nature's beauty intertwined seamlessly with human creativity. Each element of the garden told a story, each detail carried meaning. The winding, stone pathways were laid by volunteers who spent weekends hauling gravel and smoothing uneven surfaces. Along these paths stood benches donated by families, each engraved with a name or message. Some bore simple inscriptions like, "In loving memory of Tom Carter," or "Forever missed, Ethan and Liam." Others featured quotes about love, hope, and resilience, words meant to inspire reflection and comfort those who visited. At the center of it all stood the statue of Tom, Ethan, and Liam, hand in hand beneath swirling clouds. Crafted by a local artist named Clara, the piece captured the essence of the Carters perfectly. Tom's figure exuded strength and warmth, his posture protective yet gentle. Ethan and Liam leaned slightly toward him, their expressions joyful and carefree as though frozen in a moment of pure happiness. The swirling cloud formation above them symbolized both the turbulence of their final days and the peace they found beyond. It was a masterpiece, not just because of its artistry, but because it embodied everything the Carters represented: unity, love, and an unbreakable bond. But the garden wasn't just about monuments and plaques. It was alive with color and movement. Flowers bloomed in vibrant hues: yellow daffodils for friendship, purple irises for wisdom, and red poppies for remembrance. Trees planted along the perimeter provided shade during hot summer afternoons, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze. Birds nested in their branches, filling the air with cheerful chirps, while butterflies flitted between blossoms, adding a touch of whimsy to the serene setting. Even the wind seemed to carry whispers of the past, reminding visitors of the lives that once filled the town with laughter and light. For many, visiting the garden became a ritual. Families brought picnic blankets and sat under the trees, sharing stories of loved ones they had lost. Children played tag among the flower beds, their giggles mingling with the sound of flowing water from a small fountain installed near the entrance. Teenagers often came alone, sitting quietly on the benches with headphones in, scribbling thoughts in journals or sketching pictures inspired by the surroundings. Older residents found solace in tending to the plants, pulling weeds and watering flowers, their hands moving rhythmically as if performing a sacred task. The garden had become more than a memorial. It was a living testament to the enduring power of connection. Yet what truly set the memorial apart was how it evolved over time. Notes pinned to the base of the statue continued to accumulate, creating layers upon layers of heartfelt messages. Some were written on scraps of paper torn from notebooks, others on polished cards tied with ribbon. Each note added another thread to the intricate tapestry of memories woven around the Carters' story. One visitor wrote, "Thank you for teaching us that even in loss we can find hope." Another penned, "Your love inspires me to cherish my own family more deeply." These words weren't just tributes to Tom, Ethan, and Liam. They were affirmations of life itself, reminders that love transcends death and shapes the way we live. The garden also served as a gathering place for events that celebrated the values the Carters embodied. On warm spring evenings, storytelling sessions were held beneath the stars, where elders recounted tales of resilience and courage passed down through generations. During summer festivals, musicians performed songs dedicated to the Carters, blending melodies with spoken-word poetry that captured the bittersweet nature of their journey. In autumn, school children planted bulbs in preparation for the following year's blooms, learning firsthand about cycles of growth and renewal. And in winter, when snow blanketed the ground, candles were lit around the statue, casting a soft glow that seemed to defy the darkness. Each season brought new opportunities to reflect, connect, and heal, but perhaps the most poignant event was the annual anniversary celebration held every November, the day Tom, Ethan, and Liam passed away. Instead of dwelling on sadness, the town chose to celebrate their lives with music, food, and laughter. Local bands played upbeat tunes encouraging people to dance despite the chill in the air. Neighbors brought homemade dishes, turning the occasion into a potluck feast reminiscent of the gatherings the Carters themselves used to host. Stories flowed freely, laughter mingled with tears, and hugs were exchanged generously. It was a day to remember not just who the Carters were, but what they stood for: the importance of family, the strength of community, and the enduring power of love. As the years passed, the garden grew alongside the town. New additions were made: a gazebo for weddings and small performances, a labyrinth designed for quiet contemplation, and a library box stocked with books about resilience and healing. The changes reflected the evolving needs of the community, ensuring that the space remained relevant and meaningful to future generations. Children who had grown up playing in the garden now brought their own kids, introducing them to the story of Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Grandparents who remembered the tragedy firsthand shared their recollections with wide-eyed youngsters, passing down lessons learned from hardship and heartache. Through it all, Sarah's revelation about Tom's prophetic dream continued to resonate. While some dismissed it as coincidence, others saw it as proof of something greater, an unseen force guiding lives and deaths, weaving destinies together in ways beyond human comprehension. For believers, the dream reinforced the idea that Tom, Ethan, and Liam hadn't simply disappeared, but had transitioned to another plane of existence still connected to those they left behind. This belief fostered a sense of continuity, allowing people to feel closer to the departed and find solace in the thought that love endures even when physical presence fades. The impact of the Carters' story extended far beyond the borders of the town. Visitors from neighboring counties and eventually other states heard about the memorial garden and traveled to see it for themselves. They came seeking inspiration, comfort, or simply a chance to witness the extraordinary outpouring of love and creativity that had emerged from tragedy. Many left deeply moved, taking pieces of the Carters' legacy back home with them. Photographs of the garden circulated online, accompanied by testimonials from those whose lives had been touched by its message. Slowly, but surely, the story of Tom, Ethan, and Liam spread, becoming a beacon of hope for anyone grappling with loss. What made the Carters' legacy so powerful was its universality. Their story wasn't unique. It was a reflection of experiences shared by countless families across the globe. Death is an inevitable part of life, and grief is a universal emotion. Yet, the way the town responded to their loss offered a roadmap for navigating such pain. By leaning on one another, embracing creativity, and finding meaning in seemingly random events, they demonstrated that healing is possible, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The Carters taught everyone that endings are rarely final. Instead, they opened doors to new beginnings, whether in the form of relationships strengthened, communities rebuilt, or perspectives shifted. And so the small town carried on, forever changed by the loss of 3 beloved souls. Yet in their absence, they left behind a gift, a renewed appreciation for the ties that bind us, the mysteries that surround us, and the infinite capacity of the human spirit to find beauty in even the most heartbreaking circumstances. Through the Memorial Garden, their story lived on, inspiring countless others to embrace life fully, love deeply, and trust in the interconnectedness of all things. Though questions about fate, destiny, and the afterlife may never be fully answered, the Carters' legacy remains a testament to the enduring power of love, and a reminder that sometimes endings are merely beginnings in disguise. As the years rolled on, the Memorial Garden dedicated to Tom, Ethan, and Liam became more than just a physical space. It evolved into a living, breathing symbol of hope and resilience. The town's collective effort to honor the Carters had transformed what could have been a story of despair into one of inspiration. Every tree planted, every note pinned to the statue, every tear shed in silence contributed to something far greater, a testament to the enduring power of love and connection. Yet as time passed, new layers of meaning emerged, revealing how deeply intertwined the Carters' legacy was with the fabric of the community. One of the most profound changes brought about by the tragedy was the way people began to view death itself. In a world where loss is often met with fear or denial, the Carters' story encouraged open conversations about mortality. Neighbors who once avoided discussing their grief openly now found solace in sharing their feelings. Parents sat down with their children to explain that while death marks the end of a physical presence, it doesn't sever emotional bonds. Teachers incorporated lessons about empathy and resilience into their classrooms, using the Carters' journey as an example of how communities can come together after hardship. Even local clergy members referenced the family's story in sermons, emphasizing themes of unity, faith, and the idea that endings are not always final. This shift in perspective extended beyond personal interactions. It permeated the town's culture. Annual events inspired by the Carters grew in scale and significance. The November anniversary celebration, for instance, became a regional attraction drawing visitors from neighboring towns and cities. People came not only to pay respects, but also to witness firsthand the transformation that had taken place, a testament to how tragedy could spark renewal. During these gatherings, stories flowed freely, creating bridges between strangers who realized they shared similar experiences of loss. A woman visiting from another state once remarked, "I came here thinking I'd cry, but instead I left, feeling lighter, like my heart had room again." The Memorial Garden played a central role in fostering this sense of renewal. Each season brought its own unique beauty, inviting reflection and healing in different ways. Springtime saw the arrival of vibrant blooms, daffodils, tulips, and hyacinths bursting forth in dazzling colors. Children loved running through the flower beds, chasing butterflies, while adults marveled at the symbolism of rebirth. Summers were marked by lively festivals featuring live music, poetry readings, and art exhibits created by local talent. One particularly memorable summer featured a mural painted collaboratively by dozens of residents, depicting scenes from the Carters' life alongside images representing universal themes of love and loss. Autumn brought a quieter kind of magic. As leaves turned golden and red, families gathered to plant bulbs for the following year's flowers, a ritual that underscored the cyclical nature of life. Kids learned valuable lessons about patience and growth, understanding that even in dormancy, there is potential for renewal. Winter, though stark and cold, carried its own charm. Volunteers decorated the garden with twinkling lights and lanterns, turning it into a luminous haven during the darkest months. On especially frosty nights, townsfolk lit candles around the statue, creating a warm glow that seemed to defy the chill. These seasonal traditions reminded everyone that life moves in cycles, much like the changing weather, and that every phase holds its own beauty. Yet, perhaps the most unexpected development was the way the Carters' story inspired acts of kindness throughout the town. Inspired by Tom's selflessness and the twins' playful camaraderie, residents began looking for ways to make each other's lives brighter. Acts of generosity, both big and small, became commonplace. Shopkeepers offered discounts to struggling, families' teachers stayed late to tutor students free of charge, and neighbors volunteered to help elderly residents with household chores. A local charity named Carter's Circle was founded, providing support to families facing financial hardships or health crises. Its motto, borrowed from one of the notes pinned to the statue, read, "Love lives on." Even those who hadn't known the Carters personally felt compelled to contribute. A young artist visiting from out of town created a series of paintings inspired by the garden, donating proceeds from sales to fund scholarships for underprivileged students. Another visitor, moved by Sarah's revelation about Tom's prophetic dream, wrote a book exploring the concept of premonitions and signs. Proceeds from the book went toward expanding the garden, adding features like a meditation pond and a storytelling pavilion. These contributions demonstrated how the Carters' legacy transcended individual boundaries, touching lives far beyond their immediate circle. For the Carter family's remaining relatives, the ongoing tribute served as both comfort and motivation. Tom's sister, Mary, who had initially struggled to cope with her brother and nephew's sudden passing, found purpose in volunteering at the garden. She took charge of organizing events and ensuring the space remained well-maintained. Her involvement gave her a renewed sense of connection, not just to Tom, Ethan, and Liam, but to the entire community. "It's like they're still here," she often said, gesturing to the bustle of activity around her. "Every laugh, every hug, every act of kindness keeps them alive in our hearts." Meanwhile, Sarah, the distant cousin who revealed Tom's prophetic dream, became something of a local legend. Though she lived hours away, she made regular trips back to the town, drawn by the warmth and gratitude people expressed whenever they saw her. Many credited her revelation with helping them process their grief and find meaning in the inexplicable. Some even sought her out privately, asking if she believed their own dreams or visions might hold significance. While Sarah didn't claim to have all the answers, she listened patiently, offering reassurance that sometimes the mysteries of life are best embraced rather than solved. Despite the progress made, there were still moments when sorrow resurfaced unexpectedly. On quiet evenings when the streets emptied and the wind whispered through the trees, memories of Tom, Ethan, and Liam lingered vividly. For some, hearing laughter echoing through the fields brought a pang of longing. Others found themselves pausing mid-step upon seeing someone who bore a passing resemblance to one of the twins. But these moments weren't solely painful. They were reminders of the depth of love that remained. Pain and joy coexisted, intertwined like roots beneath the surface, nourishing the soil from which hope sprang anew. Over time, the Carters' story began influencing decisions beyond the confines of the town. Local leaders cited the community's response to the tragedy as a model for addressing future challenges. When a nearby factory closed, leaving hundreds unemployed, residents rallied together much as they had after the accident, organizing job fairs, fundraising campaigns, and skill-building workshops. Similarly, when a flood devastated parts of the region, volunteers mobilized quickly, channeling the same spirit of cooperation that had built the memorial garden. The Carters' legacy had instilled a belief in collective strength, proving that adversity could be met with unity and action. Even outside the town, the ripple effects continued spreading. News articles and documentaries highlighted the memorial garden as a shining example of grassroots initiatives born out of tragedy. Social media posts featuring photos of the statue and heartfelt messages garnered thousands of likes and shares, Introducing the Carter's story to audiences worldwide. People dealing with their own losses reached out, seeking advice or simply expressing gratitude for the reminder that love endures. One woman from across the country sent a letter thanking the town for inspiring her to create a similar tribute for her late husband. Another man donated funds anonymously, stating that the Carter's story had reignited his faith in humanity. Through it all, the garden stood steadfast, a beacon of light in times of darkness. Its presence reminded everyone that while life is fleeting, its impact is eternal. The Carters may have departed physically, but their essence remained woven into the very soul of the town. Their story taught invaluable lessons about love, loss, and the interconnectedness of all things. It showed that even in the face of unimaginable pain, beauty can emerge, and that endings, no matter how heartbreaking, often pave the way for new beginnings. And so the small town carried on, forever changed yet profoundly enriched by the legacy of Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Through the memorial garden, their story lived on, inspiring countless others to embrace life fully, love deeply, and trust in the enduring power of connection. Though questions about fate, destiny, and the afterlife may never be fully answered, the Carters' legacy remains a testament to the human spirit's ability to find light, even in the darkest corners. For those who lived through it, their journey serves as a poignant reminder that sometimes endings are merely beginnings in disguise. Years turned into decades, and the small town continued to grow and change. Yet the memory of Tom, Ethan, and Liam remained as vivid as ever. The memorial garden, now a sprawling sanctuary of greenery, flowers, and art, had become a cornerstone of the community, a place where people gathered not just to mourn but to celebrate life itself. What began as a tribute to three beloved souls had blossomed into something far greater, a living testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love. The garden was no longer simply a local landmark. It had gained national recognition. Travelers from across the country visited to experience its beauty and hear the story behind its creation. Journalists wrote articles about how tragedy had sparked unity. Filmmakers documented its transformation, and educators used it as an example of how communities can heal together. Despite its growing fame, however, the garden retained its intimate charm. It remained a space for quiet reflection, laughter, tears, and connection, a haven where visitors could feel the presence of something larger than themselves. One of the most remarkable aspects of the garden's evolution was how it adapted to meet the needs of future generations. As children grew into adults and new families moved into town, the space evolved alongside them. New additions included a storytelling amphitheater where elders shared tales of resilience with wide-eyed youngsters, a labyrinth designed for meditation and mindfulness, and even a playground inspired by Ethan and Liam's playful nature. Each feature reflected the values the Carters embodied: unity, kindness, and joy, and ensured that their legacy would continue to resonate with younger audiences. For many, visiting the garden became a rite of passage. School field trips brought students face-to-face with the statue of Tom, Ethan, and Liam, prompting discussions about loss, hope, and the importance of cherishing loved ones. Teenagers often sought solace there during difficult times, sitting quietly on benches or writing notes they pinned to the base of the statue. Couples carved their initials into the wooden beams of the gazebo, symbolizing their commitment to one another, while grandparents introduced their grandchildren to the story of the Carters, passing down lessons learned from hardship and heartache. Yet, what truly set the garden apart was its ability to inspire action beyond its borders. Inspired by the Carters' story, countless individuals embarked on projects aimed at fostering connection and healing in their own communities. A young woman named Rachel, who had first visited the garden as a teenager, struggling with the loss of her mother, returned years later to announce she was starting a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting grieving families. Another visitor, a retired teacher named James, launched a program teaching kids coping skills through creative expression, citing the garden's blend of art and emotion as his inspiration. These efforts demonstrated how the Carters' legacy rippled outward, touching lives far beyond the town's limits. Even within the town itself, the influence of Tom, Ethan, and Liam's story persisted in unexpected ways. Local businesses adopted practices rooted in compassion and generosity, offering discounts to those in need or hosting fundraisers for charitable causes. Schools implemented programs focused on empathy and mental health, encouraging students to support one another during tough times. And every year on the anniversary of the Carters' passing, residents came together to honor their memory, not with sorrow, but with music, food, laughter, and stories that celebrated life. Sarah, the distant cousin whose revelation about Tom's prophetic dream had sparked so much wonder, remained a beloved figure in the community. Though she lived far away, she made annual pilgrimages to the garden, always bringing new insights or anecdotes to share. Her presence reminded everyone of the mysterious forces that shape our lives, forces we may never fully understand but can choose to embrace nonetheless. Over time, Sarah's initial skepticism gave way to a quiet belief that perhaps some connections transcend the boundaries of life and death. She often said, "If Tom could see this garden today, I think he'd be proud." He didn't just leave behind a family, he left behind a legacy. That legacy extended beyond tangible achievements like the garden or charitable initiatives. It permeated the very fabric of the town, shaping how people interacted with one another and approached challenges. When conflicts arose, residents were quicker to extend olive branches, remembering the unity that had carried them through darker days. When someone fell ill or faced financial hardship, neighbors rallied together without hesitation, knowing firsthand the strength found in collective effort. Even mundane moments took on deeper meaning: a shared meal, a kind word, a helping hand, all reminders of the bonds forged in the wake of tragedy. As the decades passed, the original mourners aged, and new faces filled the town. Some of these newcomers had never known Tom, Ethan, or Liam personally, yet they felt connected to their story through the garden and the culture it had cultivated. For them, the Carters represented more than three individuals. They symbolized the idea that even in loss there is opportunity for growth, for renewal, for transformation. Their tale served as a guiding light, illuminating paths forward when darkness threatened to overwhelm. Interestingly, the garden also became a site of reconciliation. People who had drifted apart due to misunderstandings or grudges found themselves drawn back together amidst its tranquil surroundings. Sitting side by side on a bench or walking along its winding paths, they rediscovered common ground and mended fractured relationships. In this way, the garden functioned not only as a memorial but also as a bridge, a place where broken ties could be repaired and new ones formed. Perhaps the most poignant reminder of the Carters' enduring impact came during moments when the inexplicable occurred. Just as Sarah's account of Tom's dream had sparked fascination years earlier, similar stories continued to surface. A grandmother claimed she saw a shooting star streak across the sky on the anniversary of her son's death, the same night he appeared in her dreams, smiling and at peace. A farmer swore he heard faint laughter echoing through his fields late one evening, reminiscent of Ethan and Liam's mischievous giggles. While skeptics dismissed such accounts as coincidence or imagination, believers embraced them as signs that love transcends physical boundaries, lingering long after goodbyes are said. Through it all, the Carters' story taught invaluable lessons about life, death, and everything in between. It showed that endings are rarely final, that even in departure there is continuity, connection, and purpose. It reminded everyone that grief is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather acknowledged and embraced as part of the human experience. Most importantly, it underscored the power of love to bind us together, creating chains strong enough to withstand even the harshest storms. And so, the small town carried on, forever shaped by the loss of Tom, Ethan, and Liam. Yet, in their absence, they left behind a gift, a renewed appreciation for the ties that bind us, the mysteries that surround us, and the infinite capacity of the human spirit to find beauty in even the most heartbreaking circumstances. Through the memorial garden, their story lived on, inspiring countless others to embrace life fully, love deeply, and trust in the interconnectedness of all things. Though questions about fate, destiny, and the afterlife may never be fully answered, the Carters' legacy remains a testament to the enduring power of love and a reminder that sometimes endings are merely beginnings in disguise.